So my name's Roisin Mamdani and I'm Head of Sound at Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We are currently in the orchestra pit of the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. These little Roland M-48 DEMs, which we use to let the orchestra listen to everything they need to listen to in the pit. They each have one, so it sits at their station and they can have the ability to set the mix to whatever they want to. We use all 16 channels that are available. We mix them down slightly differently for each section. So, for example, on this one we have the reeds split up, 3 reed chairs, but on the string chairs where you are now, they have the strings split up and the reeds would be grouped together because there are 16 channels available. We use them for the first time on this show. I've never used them before in my career, but they were exactly what we needed when we set up this production, and they've given us the ability to do, well, we're using them to a fraction of what they're capable of, but it's exactly what we needed for the show. The musicians can come in and set up their mix to however they want it to sound. They can store it and then they can recall it the next time they're in. So if we have depths in the orchestra, then they can have their own stored settings and then come in whenever they're in the next time, recall those settings, and they're ready to play and they know what they're going to be hearing every night. The other great thing about them is that they have the ability to add reverb, and the musicians all love the fact that they can add that bit of reverb and they sound natural rather than being an electronic sound. The mixers that we would normally use for orchestras are a bit smaller and they don't have as many channels available to us, but because of what we needed something that bit bigger. So I had heard about these from a musician friend of mine who'd used them in a band, and another few of our production staff had heard of them as well. So we suggested these and they looked into them. The powers ahead of us looked into them and discovered that they are exactly what we needed, trialled them out, and the musical supervisor was asked his opinion on how they sounded, and he liked how they sounded. The musicians all liked how they worked. The designer liked the ability that they had, so they were taken on board. The most important thing for musicians in musical theatre is that they can come in and do their job without having too much hassle. They don't want to fiddle around with too much equipment and be bothered with that every night. They want to be able to come in, play their music and create what they create and then leave again. So this little cheat sheet meant that they could come in at the last minute, and if they had any problems with setting it up, they didn't have to look through a manual. They could just have this sat on their little stand and be able to refer to it. So we just colour code it. It's purely taken the information from the manual and just put it on a little A5 laminate, so that it's easier for them to pick up and look at, with just everything that they need for day-to-day running, none of the extra stuff. So the central hub, the software that controls all of them, we keep that in our radio room, so our little control room where the sound department stay during the show. And it means that we have an overview of what each mixer is doing, and if a musician has trouble with their mix of an evening, then we can resend their settings, their individual settings, to their mixer remotely from our station. We also have our own mixer, which can be made to be the monitor engineer's mixer, so we can listen to every channel. So if there's a problem in the pit, if a mic goes, even for our point of view, if a mic goes in the pit and you have a banging noise on the mic, we can find out which one it is and be able to change the mic without having to bother the person mixing the show, which again is great. If a dep comes in and has trouble recalling their mix, we can send it to them remotely from there. We store each dep under their name, so we have, say for example, recall memory 12 could be a trumpet dep called Bob, so we can send Bob's mix to him remotely from our control point. From a sound design point of view, I don't know. I think it really does help the musicians and the sound operators more than the designers. It helps the musical supervisor because it means that the musicians have the sound that they need every night, so they're playing along with what they need to hear. They all have a little ambient mic which sits around the back of the mixer, which picks up the ambient sound in the pit. So if a player is playing with 2 headphones on, a lot of the time they play with one on and one off, but they can play with 2 on and still be able to hear everything that's happening around them. So if someone speaks next to them, they're not going to miss out on that because it picks up by the ambient sound, and they can also hear a general gist of what's happening in the pit and don't feel so closed off from everyone else.